it's Jess. I am so excited to be here with you today because I'm feeling super energized after a conversation I just had with Dr. Katie Kangas. She is not new to the Pet Parenting Reset. I'm sure you know who she is if you have been around any length of time. But today we are diving into the topic of homeopathy. And that is because I have this new found, I don't even know what it is, just like oomph. Like I want to learn so much more about homeopathy. I want to learn how to use it. I just want to just start dabbling in it. In fact, the day I'm recording this, I'm getting ready to go out of town again. It's the summer. We travel constantly in the summer. All the things happen in the summer. And after talking with Dr. Katie, I'm actually taking one of her remedies, the immune remedy. I'm going to be taking it with me and starting it probably the day before I leave because I want to make sure. I normally travel with mushrooms. I will still do that, but I'm also going to be layering in her immune blend of homeopathy. So I just learned that from her, and I'm so jazzed to keep learning about homeopathy and to actually utilize it. I've actually had a number of veterinarians on the podcast in the past talk to you and me about homeopathy, and every single time I have felt so, for lack of a better word, dumb on the topic because I understand it, but I feel like I don't understand it. And I'm finally getting to the place where, no, I feel like I understand it. And part of that has to do with the lovely Bree from Taleswell. I graciously had me on her podcast, Love Your Dogs. And after that podcast, she sent me an episode of the Way Forward podcast, which is an amazing podcast. And I just hadn't heard this particular episode of a homeopath out of Australia. And I listened, and it was like, what, I don't know, almost 2 something hours. And I was just entrenched. I was fascinated with everything she was talking about with homeopathy. So I'm just really into it now. I'm really into learning about it, so much so that I just signed up for, I haven't been able to start it yet because I need to finish another course that I've already started, but I just signed up for the Introduction to Homeopathy course from Dr. Will Falconer. I just want to learn. I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. We've talked about this many times. I am forever going to be that lifelong learner. There's so much in this world to learn. Why wouldn't I want to learn it as much as I can? Like, how many books will have gone unread by the time I die? It's statistically amazing the number of books that will have gone unread, and I kind of hate that. Like, I want to learn and read and experience things that I would never otherwise experience. And other people's writings help us to do that, help us to learn, help us to see different perspectives other than our own. Anyway, I'm getting kind of off topic a little, but I'm really excited for today's episode with Dr. Katie. One, just because Dr. Katie Kangas is an absolutely amazing person. I love her so much, like truly from the bottom of my heart. I love her as a person. She has so much knowledge, so much wisdom. She is a truly integrative veterinarian, which I am so glad that she really leans into that. There are times where we need allopathic medicine intervention. There are crisis situations. There are emergency situations. We need diagnostics. Well, we could get into the diagnostics part, I think, but that's a whole other topic. We need these things. And so I'm glad she really leans into being an integrative veterinarian, but she recently, maybe a year ago, I don't know how long ago it was. Yes, it was about a year ago, came out with a line of homeopathic blends. And so we talk about homeopathy today, and I have all of her blends, all of her homeopathic blends are available at Wild Wellness Pet because I am just so I'm entrenched. Homeopathy is one of the coolest things I have ever learned about in my entire life. And I like a lot of things, and I think a lot of things are cool, but especially with the journey I have been on lately with frequency, I am so fascinated with frequency and so sad and upset that I have kept myself from the earth frequency for so long because I didn't know better. I grew up, like many of you have, in a convenient society, in a society that year after year seeks more and more convenience, and we have taken ourselves away from nature in the search of convenience. And so I'm on this frequency journey, and homeopathic remedies are frequency medicine, and I love it so much. So you can tell probably already how passionate I am about this topic, and I just cannot wait to get into today's conversation with Dr. Katie Kangas. If you, I don't know, if this is your first episode with me, welcome to the Pet Parenting Reset, where we talk about all things pet health and quality of life and all of the things for our dogs and cats. And this episode, I tried to be very intentional going through how do we broach this topic with pet parents new to the holistic world, with pet parents who are so entrenched in the holistic world it is becoming anxiety riddled and overwhelming, and then how do we kind of break past that, all while blending in an understanding of the use of homeopathy. So I hope you love this episode as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. Please check out wildwellnesspet.com to find the homeopathic blends from Dr. Katie's Remedies available to you. I will ship them to you anywhere in the continental United States. And try them out. I'm definitely going to be using some on me that I didn't even think to use on myself. And I'm going to be recommending them a whole heck of a lot more with my one-on-one clients as well, now that I am really starting to understand the power of homeopathics. So with that, here's today's episode with Dr. Katie Kangas. Real quick before we get into it, most of you listening haven't hit follow yet, and I want to make you a deal. Hit follow on this podcast, and I'll keep doing the unglamorous work of dragging holistic pet health out of Facebook group folklore and into something backed by actual science. That's the whole deal. Hit follow, and let's keep rewilding together. Okay, back to it.
Yeah. Okay, good. So rewilding, tell me.
Yes. Well, just bringing us as close to nature as we can, and then what we can't do, because obviously we're not pitching tents outside, right? How we can bring things back into the home that are going to help us get back there. So, I've talked to a handful of people over the past year that have just really, really inspired me with light and, circadian rhythm syncing and frequency and all of the things. And I'm like, this is what the earth is giving us that we're just completely ignoring.
Yep. Good for you.
Yeah, it's really where I'm hoping. And I feel like, and we'll talk a little bit about this, homeopathy is a really great tool that even for people who maybe aren't ready to actually dive into the whole like woo-woo part of everything. It's something that is so simple and easy and inexpensive to utilize. So what I'd really like to start with is talking to pet parents, and this is another thing that I'm trying to get better about, talking to pet parents who are just at that point of realizing that I've been doing everything that my conventional veterinarian has been telling me to do, and I am not seeing the results I want. In fact, things are getting worse for my pet, and I'm scared to go outside of this box, but I want better for my pets. So I'm curious if for that pet parent, can you maybe give like a homeopathy for dummies? Like, and I say that for me too. What is homeopathy? And we'll start there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, homeopathy, a really good way to start explaining and defining that for everyone is that homeopathy is not synonymous with holistic. That's a really good thing to clear up because it's a common misunderstanding. In fact, in the conventional medical space, it's a very common misunderstanding where I see a lot of records from my patients that come in that are working with me, and the record from their other veterinarian or their specialist veterinarian, whether it's a cardiologist, a neurologist, whatever, or their primary, it'll say working with a homeopathic veterinarian or working with, on a whole bunch of homeopathy supplements. And what they really mean is just holistic, because the term holistic, of course, natural, supportive health modalities and, whole body health. I mean, all the things we know about holistic healing and a holistic approach to health. But a lot of people think that's the same as homeopathy, and it's not. So holistic is the big umbrella of natural health support, tapping into, the body's ability to heal itself and maintain with wise support tactics and nutrition and herbs included, etc. But homeopathy is one subset under the holistic umbrella of many types of tools in the toolbox. So we've got our herbals. Herbs can be Western herbs, Chinese herbs, etc. We've got our, obviously, food medicine. I mean, I should have mentioned that first because that's always number one. And then we have nutraceuticals, which are supplements that are food, based or food ingredient type based. And, on and on. And homeopathy is one category in all of these amazing potential, tools that we can use that derive from natural sources. So homeopathy 101 is that the remedies, we call them remedies in homeopathy, the remedies are derived from organic substances, animal, plant, mineral substances, but they are diluted to an extreme dilution. So this is what lends to its safety and its, contrast to a lot of other modalities that we can use. And so the original substance in nature, perhaps sometimes at full strength, might be toxic or harmful to the body. But at an extreme dilution, they become incredibly safe. But the whole point of homeopathy is to just gently nudge the body toward healing itself, balancing itself, getting back into what we call homeostasis. And homeostasis is balance, metabolically, energetically, physically, and we can even get into, obviously, spiritually and emotionally, the whole 9 yards with whole body health. And so that's what homeopathy does. So it works very differently, even though herbs are natural and herbs are amazing, and we want to tap into those too. But herbals still work sort of metabolically in the body. I mean, everything has energy. So let's just say on a broad scope, everything we put in our body, food, herbs, it all has energy. We are energy. Everything is energy and vibration at a core. So not to discard plant energy making a difference for us in our herbals. But homeopathy is like purely energetic at the point where it's so diluted. Conventional medicine doctors look at that and go, dude, that's like water. There's like nothing in there. It's just, how could that do anything? It's so dilute. It's got to be nothing. But it's just enough for the body to recognize and to help nudge it to create its own change internally. But it really is working on a level of quantum biology or, quantum energy. So one great aspect about that is that homeopathy, if it's going to work for that individual, it typically works quickly. And a lot of pharmaceuticals work pretty quickly, but, obviously you've got all the downsides of the pharmaceuticals. But sometimes they don't even work that quickly. I mean, sometimes you have to be on things for a little while. And sometimes with herbs, you have to be on them for a bit or have a steady, consecutive intake to really get the full benefit out of it. Homeopathy literally can make an energetic change within moments, seconds to minutes. And so one of the big advantages of homeopathy is that it can work quickly. So for a human using it or us giving it to our pets or our animals, the neat thing about homeopathy is you can see pretty quickly if this is a match for them, if this is, helping them and addressing the pattern or the symptoms that you're after. So, and we can continue using it, of course. It's not just a one or done, one and done all the time, although there's a few instances in like a bug bite or a bee sting or, something like really acute where you give it once or twice and, the body didn't need it anymore. You're good. But we can get more into, the remedies I've created or the blends I've created, but a lot of them can be used either consecutively or intermittently as needed. And, I can speak around that a little bit more too.
Yeah, I actually pulled a few of your remedies that I just wanted to bring up maybe closer to the end so we can kind of go over just a handful of them because
Perfect. That'll be
you
a
have
nice
quite a
way to
few.
full circle it back to
Yeah.
a good ending.
There are so many things that I just kept, like, pinging in my head as you were talking, and I wanna try to keep myself a little bit focused and kind of wrap up this section before we move on to maybe more people who are a little bit more advanced and kinda stick with the people who are just starting out, and I actually think it is one of the reasons why I like your homeopathic blends so much because and I have learned this from talking to a few different homeopathic or veterinarians who use homeopathy. I don't necessarily want to say that they call themselves homeopathic veterinarians, but apparently there are different ways that different people choose to practice with homeopathy, and some of them will just use single remedies, and then others will use combinations and
Blends
blends that
and
they have.
combinations.
I think for me at least, it's a really great introduction for people to use a blend that somebody like you who has put this together and said, "I've been using this combination together. It has worked really well for me in practice. Here you go, try it."
Thank
And I
you.
think it's a
That's
really safe
a
way for the people, like, who are just like, "I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm scared, and my pet isn't doing well with my current veterinarian." It's, like, a really good way to just try something out.
yes. And thank you for very good lead-in of explanation for me to expand on a little bit is that you are correct. Classic homeopathy, the really classical, because homeopathy dates back, hundreds, few hundred to several hundred years, really. And modern homeopathy came out of Germany in like the 1700s, but it dates even farther back in its real use. But classically, one remedy would be chosen, and then you give it and see what changes for the body. Does the symptom completely go away? Does it aggravate a little bit? Or does it just shift to something else? And so in classic homeopathy, you're working very closely with your homeopath practitioner because as things change, you're like, okay, this is what's happening. And then they're like, okay, either back down on, the frequency of using that or let that one go. And we're going to put in a different remedy. And you keep helping the body shift to get to where it's in balance. And as symptoms change, that gives us the feedback we need to change the remedy or make, pivot to a different choice. And so interestingly, then New Age, and I took, my first homeopathic courses, 20 plus years ago. And, even 10, 15 years ago, I was going to training courses and seminars and as such that were really getting into blends. And even something we call biotherapeutics and homotoxicology and all the heal products, there were a lot of big guru holistic veterinarians that were teaching, blending too. And so I have been using homeopath, homeopathic blends, remedies blends for 20 years clinically and seeing such good results. And so the neat thing about a blend is that, especially in a product that's being put out commercially, like my product line now, where you don't have that person to that practitioner to tap into every step along the way and go, okay, now what do I do? The blends, the majority of the time work. I mean, they have such a high potential for working. I mean, we get a lot of positive results and phenomenal feedback. In fact, I am more jazzed about homeopathy than I've ever been. And I've been using it clinically for more than 20 years. And now that I have products, and I'd always had, my own clients reporting back to me, oh my gosh, this works so well. But now that, we get emails and messages and, social media pings and videos people are sending to us going, wow, this product has been a game changer for my pet. And even for humans, these are all human worthy. That's the other great thing about homeopathy is it's not species specific. We can get into the fact that it's not dose specific. So that's easy too. Makes it easy across species and across body sizes. But, homeopathy, of course, these remedies can be used in humans, dogs, cats, horses, chickens, elephants, doesn't matter. It's safe across the board for all species, which is great. But I've seen these combo remedies and blends work so well, and it allows more sort of easy coverage in a symptomatic or health condition pattern where you don't necessarily have to have that finessing of switching formulas and kind of evaluating as you go. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. Absolutely, clearly. Sometimes people who know a lot about homeopathy or have a homeopathic guide, practitioner will say, do this one formula. And, sometimes it may not be the game changer, but oftentimes it's like, oh my God, that one formula was, such a great hit. So again, multiple ways that homeopathy can be used and can be, tailored for, different situations and different users. But I find blends, like you said, is a really easygoing way to support a lot of pets and a lot of people easily, safely, and most of the time darn effectively.
I love that. Before we move on to maybe more advanced pet parents, I would like to just quickly touch on the topic because my understanding, I actually listened to a podcast from a homeopath out of Australia. She was a guest on a podcast, and it really got me like super energized about homeopathy. Even though I have known about it and kind of even dabbled in it for the last few years, listening to this homeopath on this podcast just really got me super excited to learn more. So much so that I actually have signed up for an intro course to like actually try to start learning it myself.
Yay!
And but she got me super jazzed about it. And one of the things that she talked about is that it's on the rise again. They have more enrollments in their courses and their certifications than they have ever had before. What's a little bit scary about that to me is that our federal government here in the United States, or the FDA, has really been putting the screws on homeopathy in the past handful of years. And, that's just a power struggle that's going to happen. And we'll just have to see how that plays out. But because so many people are becoming more interested in it, I think it's just important to, especially for these like pet parents who are just finding out that there are other ways to care for their pets, address what a lot of allopathic medical practitioners, excuse me, say about homeopathy, which is that it's nothing.
Focus. There's nothing to
right.
it. There's no way, that, it could be helpful. Which is a shame. And, the good news is, as you said, more and more people are becoming interested. I think, it may take a little bit of time, but I think exponentially pretty quickly, a lot of the world is moving more towards integrative interest, getting back to rewilding, getting back to supporting health rather than, turning to pharmaceuticals for everything. And just to say, and this will be a good little tidbit I can add in around homeopathy around this, but I am not 100% always against pharmaceuticals. There's a time and a place to use Western medicine. And it's certainly when there's, whenever there's crisis, that's typically a good time to tap into that. Something really acute, something really severe. One of the nice things about homeopathy is that it doesn't influence or negatively impact anything else you're doing, which is a really great thing for people to know in, the safety and ease of using homeopathy. It is not going to interfere with pharmaceuticals, medications. It is not going to interfere with other natural things that you may be doing or the pet may be on. Doesn't interfere with herbs, doesn't interfere with nutrition or nutritionals. which is wonderful. It's like this whole little, subset that because, and I should explain this too, because when we take homeopathy or give it to our pets, it is actually absorbing into the body's system through absorption through the mucous membranes, through the gums. And it can be put in the food and it can absorb, through into the body that way. But point being is it's bypassing the gut. It is not relying on your gut to digest it, assimilate it, distribute it to the body like our foods, like our herbs, like our pharmaceuticals. They all have to get, ingested and go through, liver pathways and, all this kind of stuff and etc. And homeopathy doesn't do any of it, it bypasses that whole system. So the nice thing is it can be aligned with anything else that is being done safely and effectively, which is really great. And so I love to tell people that if your pet, either if you're nervous about giving something, homeopathy is one of the, most easygoing categories you can pull from. So that's really great. When people tend to get nervous as far as pet parents, it's when their pet is really sensitive to stuff. And they're like, I started an eighth of a dose of a new supplement and they just, they have a reaction or response. When pets have either multiple health conditions or chronic significant things, and certainly GI related things, which is very common for a lot of pets to have significant GI disorders, gastrointestinal, sensitive tummies, etc. So I love to tell people if your pet has very sensitive digestion or they're just sensitive in general, homeopathy is the best place to start. Or if you're adding something new, choosing something from the homeopathy category to add, you will not get like a negative, side effect as far as GI issues or anything else. Could it shift the symptom pattern? A lot of times it just shifts the symptom pattern to be better, but could it shift it to just be different? Or maybe, you see the symptoms get a little worse before they get better. That can happen. It's still not super common, but it's not causing a negative, sort of situation or scenario for the body. So that's really nice for people to know about when, around the whole context of health and healing supports that we can use, but definitely in the context of alongside of Western medicine too.
If that landed for you, here's the only thing I'll ever ask: hit follow. Not because the algorithm needs it, because your pet's nervous system doesn't care about the algorithm, but because every follow tells me there's a pack out there that's done outsourcing their dog's health to fear-based vet visit small talk and wants the real root cause version instead. So this is a little bit of a tangent, but one of the things that I really love about working with animals is that there's no placebo effect. But something else that I have noticed that I'm sure you have seen this so many times as well is that so many times, especially with these animals that you're talking about, who they have so much going on, any little thing can trigger worse symptoms to pop it. Like, and pet parents understandably get really nervous and anxious around that. But pet parents having the expectation that something bad is going to happen or that it's not going to work, that's what I'm like. Yes, there isn't a no. There's no placebo effect in animals, but there is an expectation in people. So
I
we also
love
have
that
to go in.
you bring that in because it's so true, because our energy, our pets pick up on our energy. I mean, they are, everyone talks about, the sixth sense, and, dogs have it and animals have it, and they're, they're vibrating at in much more of a presence and a tapped in, sort of awareness than most humans in today's world. And they absolutely key in on our energy and our biofield and the emotions and, you know, signals we're putting out energetically and even biochemically. And so if an owner is stressed every time they're giving something to their pet, then the pet's going to pick up on that. And then their response to it can change just because they're stressed, knowing that their owner's stressed. And so that could interfere. So that is really, I mean, that's like a cool deep dive. but it's true. And so I'm glad that you brought that up. And so at least through this conversation, it's nice for people to hear that overall. But with homeopathy, that stress level of getting something goes way down because it is literally not harmful. And, I mean, it's just so easygoing.
Yeah. So, okay, let's kind of take it up a little bit of a notch and go to pet parents who are, and you've got Karen and Rodney's book behind you, so they kind of, I think, maybe coined that term 2.0 pet parent. So
Yes.
these 2.0 pet parents who, and there's a range, but what I have noticed is a lot of people it that call themselves 2.0 pet parents were still kind of chasing the next shiny thing. What's the next study that Rodney is talking about that I can change something in my dog's life, right? Like we're still chasing the it's almost like biohacking. And I literally just recorded an episode that I'm going to put out where I talk about how I love and hate biohacking. But it's like we're just constantly chasing. And a lot of times these people, you know, they're doing all the things and they get so overwhelmed with the fact that one, they're doing all the things and maybe still not seeing the results that they're looking for. Oftentimes, I find because they're just doing too many things. But for those kind of people, these people in this like 2.0 pet parent range who are like, yes, I want to try all the things. I want to do everything everybody is talking about. How can we address homeopathy with them?
Yeah. So, and just to sort of, expand or talk a bit to what you just said,
Yeah.
that is such a great, I love that, you're bringing that to light because it is becoming a more and more common scenario for
Mhm.
people to almost be doing too much or at least be, sort of jumping or grasping at what am I missing? I mean, I think the anxiety level of a lot of pet parents in that they might not be doing everything they can be for their pet or doing it all right or something could be better. It's almost like in today's day of information, and believe me, we're so fortunate in today's modern you know convenience and technology ability that we can get information at our fingertips. And it does allow us to oftentimes make better choices and, obviously live higher quality lives in a lot of ways. But it can also be on the flip side, again, everything in moderation. And I think sometimes when we have so much information at our fingertips, it gets overwhelming, it gets confusing. And like you said, I think it primes people to be, what's next? What am I missing? I've got this and now I want to go to this and this and this. And almost in that rewilding sort of intention is sort of getting back to a little bit of balance and harmony and knowing that you don't have to do or apply for your pet or yourself every single thing that you learn, everything that's out there, because there's so many things. And I love to tell people that when people meet with me individually, when I'm doing telemedicine with my clients for my patients, is one of my biggest values to people is helping them streamline to a sensible amount of things to really get the most bang for the buck for what their pet needs right now in their lives right now, because that can change. But I love to tell people, I mean, you could justify 100 supplements. I mean, there's so many good things out there, but that's obviously too much. So, let's really be sensible and, focus on a really good baseline and balance of things. And if a new condition comes up or things aren't resolving, it makes sense to try to, adjust something and, maybe there's something else. But without sort of a reason to have to get so, I don't want to say desperate, that might be, but sometimes it is. It's almost like desperation. Like clients are like, oh my God. I mean, so I think that's a really nice perspective for people to have. And again, homeopathy is a nice, and not the only tool, but it's just a nice tool in that kind of a situation, because it really taps in energetically with the body. It's the, digestive system in the body in general is not going to, have a reaction to, to a homeopathic remedy. Um, so it just makes it easy when people are trying to implement something new. But I really love that you brought up almost that shiny new object that, people feel like they need to find. Because one thing I would love to share with everyone on that is that oftentimes I will, meet with clients, and many scenarios I've met with them a few years ago, and they didn't end up implementing what we had talked about previously. Or maybe they did for a little bit, and then it seemed like there was something else new that might be better. And so they jumped to that and let go of these other things, which I always love to tell people there are certain things that are really good for ongoing use, and there are other things that are good for intermittent and as needed use. But I find a lot that they're either not doing the original sort of baseline stuff, and then they're jumping at all these new things. For example, there's a lot of information out there about fenbendazole or Panacur and ivermectin and things for, cancer, et cetera. And it's wonderful that there's these new options and this new data and, repurposed drugs that could potentially, bring a lot of value to a cancer scenario for a human or a pet. But the thing is, I'll get people who contact me and they just got a new diagnosis for their pet, and they're like, I want to do fenbendazole and or ivermectin. And I'll look, and all the baseline stuff's still not there. We don't know vitamin D levels. We're on a home prepared diet that's not formulated to be balanced. There could be a lot of deficiencies. There's so many, we're not on omega-3s or whatever. So a lot of times people are going for that, like, easy bullet that is getting a lot of focus in the media or social media or whatever. And it's nice to kind of center down and go, okay, am I missing any of my baseline things, or did I let some of those go in the past, and kind of regroup a little bit? Because even just vitamin D alone, powerful anti-cancer agent and anti-inflammatory. And so I just love to remind people, and the mushrooms and the omega-3s, that there's a lot of things that, sensibly support the body to where maybe you don't have to reach for the things that are a little more targeted and specific. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I think, and that is one of the biggest values whether it's working with you, or another veterinarian who does telemedicine, or even oftentimes a pet health coach or whoever, like
mhm,
working with, um, a canine nutritionist who maybe has additional certifications, whoever it is. I find that to be one of the biggest values is pulling things back
yeah,
and really resetting that baseline and going the more natural. For me, I think I just
mhm,
love going the more natural route before we start adding on all these other things. And I so often see people who have their dogs or cats on a list of supplements, and when I start asking them, "Okay, what was the positive benefit that you saw when you added this one in?" More often than not, "I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know."
yep. And at some point, there's so many things it's hard to even decipher.
Yeah.
So I love that reset, that parent resetting. But I love that you said that in working with a practitioner, a skilled or experienced practitioner, any niche, nutrition, pet health coach, veterinarian, etc., that that is one of the values, is to really bring you back to center and to, to presence in, sort of the baseline and a reset of figuring out where's this pet right now, because things change too. And where a body was a year or two ago is not where it is now. And so it is nice to sort of get guidance on a reset of, what is the most sensible collection of things that I can be doing now,
Yeah.
and homeopathy's making a comeback. So that can be one
It
of the tools that people consider.
it is, and that kind of leads me to the other thing that I see a lot, especially when people are starting out, say they just found you or Dr. Judy or, Karen and Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney, or, like, say they just are, like, finding this and they're like, "This is amazing. I love this. I'm learning all of these things," and they are making changes in their pets' lifestyle and diet, and they're seeing all these positive benefits. But the mindset, that paradigm shift hasn't really sunk in to where they're still looking for the quote holistic supplement that's going to take care of this symptom for their animal.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of the things I would love if you could help me with is because homeopathy is often, especially when we're working, like you explained earlier, with classical homeopathy, a very symptom-based practice, like, you are targeting symptoms, but when we think more holistically, we are thinking of the whole body. Can you help me put that in perspective?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good nuanced question in the fact that, to back up further, the word homeopathy literally means like heals like, or like cures like. So, homeo, like similar, like, that from that essence of the Greek, terminology, is that when you're picking a remedy for the body to help it heal, you are actually picking it on symptom based, because whatever symptom the body is showing, like say you have runny eyes and hay fever, you may be picking something that has the essence of an onion in it that causes runny eyes. And that helps the body to, so it's like giving something that is similar to what would cause, an agent that would cause that symptom, because it's helping the body energetically balance to figure out how to recorrect that symptom on its own with just a little nudge. So it is symptom based, which sounds like it would be akin to pharmaceutical, but it's on a different sort of premises, in that, yes, you are choosing a remedy based on the symptoms, but you're choosing one that is that would create a similar response in the body, but just that very, very diluted essence of it is just enough to help the body figure out how to overcome that symptom by getting back into balance so that it's curative. A lot of, um, you know, homeopaths will say, they're after the remedy that's curative, meaning putting the body back into, the good state or perfect state again.
Sorry, my dog is barking again. Um, we're kind of used to that here, but it's still embarrassing. It's like, I'm supposed to be professional. Okay, so that makes sense, and kind of the way that I have tried to make sense of it in my mind in the past is giving the body a frequency of what I want the immune system to pay attention to, so that the immune system then says, "Oh,
Yes.
this is what you want. Let's fix
Yeah,
this."
exactly. That's a great way of saying, of phrasing that. Really good way. Yeah.
So what if, and this is a tangent, so I apologize for bringing this up, but what if the immune system's not doing great, or the animal is on an immunosuppressant medication?
Yeah. Well, the good news is that, again, homeopathy is not going to cause harm. So even on an immunosuppressive medication, there's still things we can do to help modulate and support the immune system to, to function better. Like our mushrooms, our immune modulators, phenomenal thing to be on if you're on immunosuppressives. Homeopathy, certain remedies are going to support the immune system to balance better. So even on a suppressive, it's still going to give some positive influence to the body to be able to work with that and shift to performing better, and functioning better internally. So,
Yeah.
and I do have and when we get to products in the end, we can talk about it, but I do have an immune formula that would be purposeful in, yay, one of my
Yeah,
favorites that
that
would be
was
purposeful in the example you just gave.
okay. That was one of the ones I pulled to ask you about later. And we can get to these, blends in maybe if my dogs chill
They
out.
just want to be involved today.
They do. In just a moment, I just have, like, one more question about okay, because you have brought up there are lots of different modalities, there are lots of different tools in the toolbox, and to just kind of simplify the question, if we're looking at herbs, whether they're Chinese herbs or Western herbs, if we're looking at maybe, like, aromatherapy and essential oils, if we're looking and then we're looking at homeopathy, how would you decide, like, which way I mean, o oftentimes we do take a layered approach, but how would you decide, like, "Okay, this is the one that I would want to start with?" Like and because in my mind, as you've described, homeopathy is frequency, so most of the time when I'm talking to a veterinarian or any sort of medical, doctor, practitioner, it's always the least amount, the smallest possible dose to get the result you're looking for, so it makes
Exactly.
sense to me that you would start with homeopathy. I don't
Right.
know.
Because it's already the smallest dose.
Yeah.
And, and we can expand a little bit in, extra detail, but there's different potencies in homeopathy, 30C, 200C, 1M, etc. They're all still uber dilute compared to anything else you're going to take, but there are different potencies. And so, and 30C is a very easygoing potency. That's kind of just a good choice for point and shoot for everybody. So almost all the potencies in my remedies are almost all 30C. But that's part of that equation too. But back to your really good original question in this is when you have all these things that work with frequency and energy and vibration, how do people know which one maybe to choose first? Honestly, there's no wrong. I mean, it's all, and like you said, a layered approach or a multimodal approach where you're doing a few things. And, we talked about there's a difference between excess and a small handful of things or a few things. And so you don't have to just pick one thing and not use anything else. But really, it's what either is working for that pet or that person, that individual, what the pet parent just resonates with. If they're just like a lover of essential oils and aroma, it's like, and you already have a bunch of it, great, utilize it. But you can also see the response from your pet. Like essential oils are a powerful tool. Love them. Been using them clinically for years and for myself. But there are some aromas or oils, types of oils that don't resonate with every individual. And sometimes you'll have a pet or a person, where you try to apply it or put it, in a diffuser around. They don't like it. So also read the cues from your pet as to what is a good match for them. Whether that's the flower anything vibrational or the flower essences or even, herbs, um, essential oils, homeopathy, etc. I have not actually, I have not had anybody tell me their pet doesn't seem to resonate with the homeopathic formulas. Obviously that can happen. That has not been reported to me. I have had a lot of people tell me, and people send us videos of their kitty cats coming to the dropper. We can talk a little bit later about how there's no alcohol or, preservative in it, no bad flavor, palatable. So it's very easygoing and especially easy delivery for kitties. But a lot of times people tell me, and so this is something that's nice for pet parents to be on the lookout for or aware of, is does your pet clearly resonate with this? Or not, they don't, they're saying, don't give that to me. Because if they're coming, they see the homeopathy bottle, and I have people tell me my pet comes to me when they see me get this bottle. That is one of the coolest feedbacks I ever get. And I've gotten it a lot because that pet energetically knows that that's helping them and they resonate with it. And they're demonstrating that for the pet parent. And that is so cool.
That is really, really cool that they know it. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, there's so much in my opinion, there's so much more aligned energetically, spiritually with the world than we are today. And not all of us, but a
Right.
lot of
But
us.
for the most part, on a larger level, that is, I think, true as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, you do have a line of homeopathic remedy blends. Are they all blends?
Yep.
I think they might
Perfectly
all be
said. They're
blends.
all blends. Yep.
And I just grabbed a few to ask you about. These 2 are often my entry for anybody I'm working with into homeopathy. So this is the Vetox and the Vetox R. Um,
Good. Okay.
because, and tell me if I'm wrong, I mean, by the time people get to me, they are just on the struggle bus. They have tried everything and they're like, I don't know what else to do. And so my first thought after, especially after looking through records and seeing, this lines up with, the vaccine they just had a couple of weeks earlier or whatever. And I'm like, well, let's just start by seeing if we can get rid of whatever energetic residue is left from these vaccines.
Perfect. 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 Lead in to really support people with a wise use of these, types of remedies is that, again, homeopathy can be used to address or treat anything, like any condition, any symptom. There's nothing off the table that homeopathy can't help address. But they have been widely used for detox support for the body. And there are certain remedies that are known to be very good for post vaccination support, detoxification support for the body. And there are, very specific remedies like in my Vetox, which we called it Vetox because a lot of people are going to, thank you, are going to gravitate to that for vaccination, post vaccination for their pets. But the detox formula can be used for any detoxification support reasons. So it could be used seasonally just to help the body, like you said, let go of, things that are stored in there or stagnant from pesticide exposures, flea and tick products, anesthesia that had to be used for surgeries or dental procedures, medications of just all kinds of pharmaceuticals. So there's remedies in that blend that help lymphatic drainage, that help the body, to literally let go and drain of things that are accumulating or storing in there. And, some immune support, some anti-inflammatory support, etc., would be in there as well. And then the Vetox R that one's very specific for rabies. So that would be used post rabies vaccine specifically to help reduce any likelihood of a vaccine reaction or vaccinosis, because vaccinosis problems can show up months down the line, maybe even years. And you know a lot of data is coming out that obviously there's things that wouldn't be thought of normally as a vaccine reaction because it's happening months down the line. Um, so it is also good to point out that both of those formulas can still be used months after or even years after a vaccination. Even if the vaccine was 2 years ago, you use Vetox, it's still going to help the body. So it doesn't have to be a recent vaccine, but the Vetox R is very specific to helping the body post rabies vaccination because the licinamide in there is very specific for that. But there's also arnica for inflammation, and arnica actually helps some drainage too. It's also a drainage, supporter. And aconitum, which for, fever and, kind of acute, compromise or challenge to the body. So, basically a post immune challenge or, rabies vaccine challenge. So,
I'm glad you, well, said all of that, but even with the Vetox, taking it seasonally or for other things besides just vaccinations, because one of there's sorry.
they're like, we.
One of the things that I have been noticing quite a bit lately on the bioenergetic testing, the one that I prefer to use has organ system stressors in it. And so I'm trying to continually learn Chinese medicine to be able to understand what those organ stressors actually mean energetically in the body. And I see a lot of just lymphatic stagnation um, in a lot of dogs, even
Yes,
dogs that the owners think they get a good amount of exercise. They get walked. They might go to the dog park. Blah blah blah. I'm like, well, there are other things that we can do for lymphatic drainage too.
exactly. And even simple body work things, a lot of people probably at least have heard that massage is very good for lymphatic release. That's
Hmm.
one of the health benefits of getting massage. Chiropractic care, also phenomenal for lymphatic, because when you're aligning the spine and the whole body, then all the nerve networks, the blood flow, and the lymphatic system are aligned and running better after, an adjustment. So that's another fun way. But there's also certain herbs and homeopathics that help the support lymphatics, the lymphatic system and lymphatic drainage. And lymphatic system was kind of an unsung hero and forgotten for the most part, even in conventional medicine, really. But it's getting a lot more focused in sort of the natural health space and you know, herbal approach, um, because we're really becoming aware how important it is. And we think of detox, and most people are like, liver support, liver detoxification, which is important. The liver has a lot of jobs. One of its jobs, obviously, is detoxifying, but it filters the blood, and the kidneys do too. So liver and kidneys are, the two most known detoxification organs, but they rely on the lymphatic system to work too, because the liver can, um, filter stuff out of the blood, but it still has to exit out of the body and get out of the circulation system. So if you are supporting the liver a lot, you may be filtering, but then they're still circulating, and you got to get them into the lymphatic system to drain them out. So they work together in
Yeah,
harmony, hopefully.
interesting. Interesting. Okay, so this next one, I actually sent this to a current student of mine whose cat just passed away and her dog is really struggling. So I sent her one of these, and I'm waiting for an update from her, but it's the
The
stress
stress formula.
formula.
Yeah.
And I will say, and maybe this might be what you were saying earlier about sometimes a symptom can get a little bit worse before it gets better. Ignatia is in this. And I started taking just this single Ignatia myself for nightmares. And like
Mhm.
the first night I did it, I felt like it got so much worse. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to take this anymore.
And that was with single remedy Ignatia.
That was a single, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I haven't, and I'm like, I'm trying to build myself back up to start it again because I'm like so sleep deprived from all of these nightmares.
Oh, yeah. Ignatia. And I don't know if the potency, if changing a
I have to look
potency
it
would
up.
be a little helpful. If, um, and maybe in a blend
Mm,
with other things like in the stress formula, maybe it would balance that out for you a bit. But Ignatia is very commonly used for grief, despair, depression, loss, of a pet or another, human or whatever. Any of those things, Ignatia can really support the balanced, energetic, and emotional, and physical things that are happening in the body, in relation to that. And so that's in the stress, my stress combo. And there's a few other, remedies in there, that couple in there as well, for other things like fright and fear and anxiety and nervousness. And so again, blending, there's four, remedies in there, Ignatia being one of them, that it's really balancing. And, you know, it would be interesting to see if I don't know if you've tried it yourself yet,
I
how your
haven't.
response is to it, but I haven't yet had, and obviously it can, like you said, sometimes you're triggering something in the body, just like we know with detox too, that sometimes the body get the symptoms get a little bit heightened before they get better. But truly, if you're taking it and that's not changing, and then maybe it's just not a match for you, or maybe your body's just not energetically ready for that right now. But you could either back up, you could change a potency, or you could try the blend and see if maybe the balance of that is more resonating with your body. So that is very interesting. It's nice to, pay attention to your response to it and, try to pivot through that to, figure out what's working best for you. But I've had a lot of good feedback about this formula too on, for pets, for dogs and cats. And, definitely something that people tell me all the time: car travel, vet visits, thunderstorms, fireworks, etc. Those triggers. One thing that is good to know, and it is on the label, it is not intended, some of these formulas, and not that you couldn't take Ignatia more long term, but some of the things I have in there are really for like heightened fear, anxiety, like triggery situations. So I put on the label, not intended for use beyond 5 consecutive days. Not that you couldn't use it this month and use it next month and, 2 months when you have to travel and your pet has to go on a really long car ride, or there's visitors coming and, pets are freaked out, everyone's in their space. You can keep reusing it, but this is not a formula that's intended for chronic stress purposes. So it's more for the situational things that, arise or are happening, etc. So
That is very good to know. Very good. So, okay, the next one, I just have 2 more. So the next one you brought up earlier, it is the immune
the
blend.
immune, yeah. So, and that have you had anyone use that yet or had any experience with it?
Not, but I think I'm just kind of I've been trying them almost one at a time just to kind of, like, dip
That's
my toe
great. I
in.
mean, that's really good that you're doing that. That's very sensible. Not that they can't be overlapped. So that's like a really nice point that you brought up, is that I certainly have patients that are on 2 or 3 of my blends, but when you're starting anything, it's nice to start one thing at a time to see how the body responds. So that's always what I recommend. So good that, you're obviously employ that for yourself and others. But the immune remedy has been so helpful. It, there's really not a situation where you shouldn't use it, but certainly it's going to shine for support in, I mean, for a human in any like travel. I take it when I travel so that I'm less susceptible to catching, viral things or whatever when I'm traveling. Obviously for pets, if there's ever a time of immune suppression, of challenge, you know, post-operatively immune mediated, conditions, viral conditions, or bacterial infections, whatever. It's all purposeful there. I have very specifically had people with kitties with upper respiratory, infection, because that's a common condition that resurfaces often throughout life when, stressors or whatever arise. And when kitties get, the runny eyes and the, runny nose or sneezing, and people say, oh my gosh, I give, several doses of the immune and boom, it's gone. So, any situation like that, any immune support. So, again, there's things in this formula for drainage, for, supporting immune function at, sort of a deep matrix level. There's echinacea, homeopathic echinacea in there as well. And so, immune modulator supportive, but also balancing and, draining things that, because a lot of things staying stagnant in the system gum up the immune system too. So a little bit of some crossover of a few of the ingredients that are in like the detox also show up in the immune, because that helps the immune system to perform better and balance better too. So
Interesting. So we touched a little bit earlier on getting, like, all of the base stuff, like, worked out, figured out, getting all of that put in place. If somebody is just starting out, maybe they are still feeding a kibble, or for financial reasons, they're doing half and half or whatever, they just learned about, over vaccination, so maybe their dog just had vaccines a couple of months ago, or Is this something that you feel like would be beneficial, uh, even with not all of the base stuff, like, really put in place yet? Um, that's my first question.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know if you want me to answer or you want to tag in your
Go ahead.
second
Okay.
or pause to answer.
Well, my second question would be how beneficial or have you used this specifically with transitioning to new food? Because a lot of I mean, obviously, with so much of the immune system being in the gut, so many pet parents are terrified of that transition period.
Yes, that would actually be, that isn't something that I have with awareness recommended, but it's absolutely a good use of it. And there's literally no downside to, using that immune.
Yeah.
And again, the label says just to be sort of a reasonable target point for the general masses. It
Mhm.
says to use it, for 2 to 3 weeks and then to pulse it, kind of thing, so that you're not just using it every day for 365 days in a row kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, could it be used for a month in a row? Absolutely. And could it be used in a transition time like that where the immune system's just supported? Absolutely. And just to make another comparison, I also have an allergy remedy, which again, there's some crossover. It's not the exact same, but there's definitely some remedies that are in the allergy formula that show up in the immune formula, because obviously where allergies, from, it's from your immune system responding in an imbalanced way or being hyper triggered or, et cetera, being, sensitized. And so those types of things, if people are worried that their pets, they may be allergic, or respond, poorly to a new food, that would make sense. That said, though, if their pet has a history of having just sensitive digestion and pancreatitis and, reflux and all this kind of stuff, then not that immune can't go wrong. Immune's not going to do anything but give some positive assists. But that kind of sensitive, like I'm scared to change the diet or add new foods, that would be great for the tummy remedy. And so I do have, and I don't know if you have that one sitting next to you. I
Didn't.
do, have it right here. Is that the front? Yeah, the front. I'm labeled tummy. So I labeled it tummy, easy to understand. Anything GI, anything gastrointestinal related. Um, there are remedies in there that help for, nausea, upset stomach, stomach cramping, um, you know, inflammation in the gut. It's wonderful for, I think it shines for upper GI reflux and indigestion, etc. But it definitely is good for middle GI, like an IBD, inflammation of the small intestine. It's also good for, large intestine and colon. So tummy again is a just a nice but easygoing, comprehensive blend for GI. And it really, I think, is my hands down favorite formula, because I see so many patients with literally disastrous GI issues. And I love working with that. And I love helping get that corrected and resolved, because we know the our digestion and our gut is the core of our health. They even teach us in Chinese medicine, if a patient presents with a myriad of issues, you got to start with the gut, because until we balance the gut and heal the gut and get that functioning better, nothing else can fall into place really well. And so that tummy formula, I mean, I get good feedback on all of them, but it could almost bring me to tears. I have had so many clients say this remedy darn near saved my pet. Like it just, nothing else was working. I didn't know what else to do. And they've got good things, but again, the pet is so sensitive and they're trying to figure out with all the trials of this and this and this. And then they back off on everything for a minute just to try to, find a center and use the homeopathy. And they're like, oh, that's the one thing that helped get us over that hump and inched us closer to. And it's not the only tool. We want to add other things. So I'm not saying that, you do that and you don't do anything else, but it's a lovely either starting point or recenter point, or to just get that edge in that is going to help that pet move a little bit in a better direction.
I'm glad you brought it up then, because I
Thank you.
didn't wanna overwhelm you with a ton of
Uh,
blends, and I
it's
didn't
so
bring tummy up here, but you said IBD, and I am just like all of my spidey senses went off because just about every cat parent you talk to either says my cat has IBD or my cat has small bowel lymphoma. Like no kidding. Like
it's so common. It's so common. And Um, so it is a real, I'm glad it came into this discussion. And then the other thing that maybe we didn't highlight yet, which I think is really important when we're talking about kitties, but everybody, is that I design my formulas. They're pretty innovative in the pet health space in respect to most homeopathics out there, and there weren't that many. It was a little bit underserved, and so that's lovely that there was a lot of room for homeopathic, products to reach everyone. But importantly, most homeopathic products, are all really until now, are either you're giving pellets, which isn't super easy to get the pellets in the mouth, and they're rolling out of the lip and they're sticking your finger. It's a little bit cumbersome, but totally can be done. But most homeopathic remedies on the formulas are on the market for pets are based in either alcohol or glycerin as a preservative, so that they're easy as a liquid. They stay preserved at room temperature, etc. So I did something different because through the years I know that because homeopathy absorbs, sorry, purely and quickly through the gums, through the mucous membranes and the gingiva. And so we love to get it in the mouth. It can absolutely be put in food if the pet doesn't like its mouth touched, or, that's not a match for certain pets. But we love to get it right in the mouth because it's just getting in really well that way. So a lot of times, especially with cats, if there's alcohol in that bottle, the first time they taste that product, or you try to get them to eat it out of the food, they run from you every time they see the bottle. My product line has been created so that it comes with the custom blended pellets. So when you read the label, all the remedies that are on the label are in those pellets. And it comes in an empty amber bottle with the pellets, meaning empty, no liquid in it. The pet parent or consumer who's purchasing the bottle, you fill it with clean water, filtered, purified, reverse osmosis, distilled, doesn't matter. Just avoid tap water if possible, because we don't want the toxins and all the hormones and junk that's in tap water to mess with our beautiful energetics of our remedies. So clean water, but it's based in water. And the beautiful thing is it tastes like water. It's very palatable. Cats literally, like I said, come for the drops. A lot of times they're happy to take them. Little, dogs that are finicky, people are like, oh my God, they love the drops. They see me getting them out of the fridge and they come running. It is so darn cool. And so what we tell people, and it says on the label, is that once you mix the water in there and you've reconstituted or hydrated the product, then, and you always shake it, or, give it a little gentle pound on your palm several times before you use it, that stored in the fridge and for about 3 months, and that then discarded after that, because it will have, there's no preservative, so we can't keep it for years on end. The good news is, though, that the pellets preserve they're naturally, when there's not a preservative in there, but they are naturally stable, literally for years. So it's a 3-year life on the bottle, or expiration date, but everyone that knows homeopathy knows those pellets are good for years and years. So good news is that until someone makes it, they've just got it in their, first aid kit, or their, backup, on deck, toolbox, then it's going to last forever in its, pellet form. And then once you make it up, refrigerate it for the most part, but I like to tell people it's not gonna go bad in a couple of days. So I've had people say, oh, I left it on the counter, and so I pitched it, I need a new one. And I'm like, it's fine for even several days. It's just not months on end, weeks and months on end, that that we would want to keep it out of cooler storage, because there is no preservative in it.
Well, I think we've covered a lot, but is there any other blend that you just really want to cover before we end, or?
Yeah, I guess you hit all the highlights. The one that I would say, which I've been Using more lately, I've just had more patients with this need is the kidney formula. So I do have a kidney support blend too. And especially for a lot of older, you talked about how common IBD, and GI stuff for kitties these days. But of course, kidney disease and kidney problems are also extremely common in cats and not uncommon in dogs. And the thing with kitties, either when they're older, or geriatric, or they have kidney issues, again, it's hard to get supplements into them. I mean, for cats to freely eat a lot of supplements, herbs and stuff like that, it can be really difficult. And so the kidney homeopathy formula is such a great thing for kitties because, again, it's gentle. If they're got a lot of, their kidneys are not working optimally, they're underweight, whatever's going on, this kidney formula is going to generally be an easy thing to add in. It's definitely not going to be any negative effect for them. Um, and, it's gentle to tag in with anything else or as a standalone, if they're not doing a whole lot of other supplements. So
Yeah, it really is difficult for cats. Goodness. Because then when we talked about this earlier, well, we talked about pet parents being stressed, but so often I look at, especially with a cat, and I'm looking at, the pet parent is just trying to do the best they can, that they know how to do, and they're trying to get this supplement into their animal, and it is so stressful. It's such a stressful situation that the cat's hiding, running away, and it's like, are we just undoing all of the good we think we're doing with the supplement?
yeah, exactly. And I love to tell people, and it's nice to just spend a second on that. You just led into that so well that food is the most important. Like they have to eat, they have to nourish their bodies. And so if we are prioritizing supplements over food and they won't eat their food because we're shoving, supplements in it that they don't want, we got to back up and figure out something different. And that's where homeopathy can be a nice match. But, I tell people too, and with cats, it's like, you just really like less is more with cats. You got to just be even more streamlined with cats. Um, but, with dogs, sometimes, you just find a super high commodity treat, whether it's a sardine that has a really, big aroma that high masks, overpowers the herbal smell or, whatever you need to do. And I'm like, just put it in an appetizer and let the meal be the meal. Just let them enjoy food. I mean, food is such an enjoyment in everyone's lives, but definitely pets, like especially dogs. I mean, that's what they live for. So it's really nice to kind of have that perspective of not overwhelming the joy of food with too many supplements. And then homeopathy affords a water tasting, easygoing thing that, can really help to support that aim of easy easy going with getting things in.
Well, I love it. I love that you did this. I'm thankful that you did this because I do think it makes it easy for us. It makes it attainable. It makes it just and it's so very inexpensive, especially when we look at what other supplements cost, right?
Thank you. It's true. Yeah. I mean, it's and homeopathy's always been that way, is that it is a, very cost effective, low cost item that's natural and has a ton of potential and safety. So I love that. Thank you for adding that because supplements, and there's a lot of great supplements that, have a higher price point for a reason. It costs a lot to source, certain things, but, homeopathy is one of the many advantages is it's not an expensive modality. So
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Dr. Katie, I'm always so grateful for you coming on the show, helping to educate us, just giving your knowledge so freely to everyone. I appreciate you for that. And I know you have a backup, you have a wait list, but you do telemedicine, and everybody can find links to you in the show notes. But if there's anything that you want to talk about or say, I'm happy to give you the space to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, I will say I'm glad you brought that up. I obviously love to, you know, that support people personally through customized attention through my telemedicine, practice, integrative veterinary care. But I also love and appreciate the opportunity to join you today and other platforms like this where we can get more, share more of, this type of knowledge and awareness for people to be able to use as a resource. So thank you so much. And the other fun thing that I can share is that I have a podcast coming out soon too. Yes, that will, our first drop date will be in July. So it'll be launched soon and it's called Challenging Pet Health. And my co host is Clayton Payne of Pet Business Disruptors, who, of course, Clayton. And so the fun thing is that in our Challenging Pet Health, theme is that I bring in a lot of perspective and information from the medical side of holistically integratively supporting health for pets and applies to humans too. Um, and then Clayton Payne being an expert in the pet health product space with distribution and all the products and even how things are made and manufactured. I mean, stuff that's way out of my wheelhouse. And so he brings in all this information that we get to tie together to just be useful nuggets for people. And then, with his sense of humor and his UK accent and his presence, it's fun, like it's a fun tandem. So we've got that coming out soon. And I hope that is going to be a wonderful resource that people will love.
I love that. I mean, the two like I feel like you're total opposites, but
Right. I
they
know.
can work.
It's a fun matchup, right?
It is. It's a fun matchup. He's just very blunt and matter
Yes.
of fact and
Yes.
very he takes up space.
Yep. Exactly.
Not that there's
So
anything wrong with that. I
not
think
at
we can
all.
learn a
And
lot
so
from
it
that.
is a fun dynamic of, opposites ish, but blending into something that turns out to be fun and informative for everybody.
Yeah, and that you both care about so much. That's wonderful.
Indeed. The passion, high passion on both sides. So that's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dr. Katie. I love you so much. I appreciate you so much. I can never wait every year to get to see you somewhere in person, to give you a big hug
Yay!
and to talk to you as often as I can on the show because there's so much knowledge I know you have. And this is, we've talked about this, like just there are so many veterinarians and you're not in this camp, but especially the ones that are like ready to retire that are like all they're talking about is where does all of my wisdom go now, right? And
Yeah.
so let's, trying to figure out how to get it down somewhere digitally.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
And to, share it to the best ability, effectively. So I love that, and I love what you do and what you offer, all the people that you touch through this platform and your other work. And thank you for bringing me along for a little bit of that journey.
Of course. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here today, for listening in. I really, truly hope if you haven't already taken the leap or even that baby step into trying out some homeopathy, I think Dr. Katie's blends are just a fantastic way to do that. Even if you have been using homeopathy for a long time, but maybe you haven't put blends together quite like she does, give them a try and see how well they work. So, with that, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Give your pets some extra love from me and from Dr. Katie this week. And I will talk to
Yay!
you next week.
Thank you.
Quick one. Everything in the Wild Wellness Pet Apothecary, I've handpicked myself. Not an affiliate dump, not trust me, bro, Amazon links. Herbs, remedies, and support I actually use with my own clients' dogs. If you're tired of guessing what's real and what's marketing in the pet wellness aisle, it's linked at wildwellnesspet.com. Go take a look. Quick favor before I let you go. hit follow. That's genuinely the only thing I'll ever ask you for. It's how this show grows enough to keep bringing you vets, herbalists, and holistic practitioners who've actually done the work instead of just parroting the pharma line.